normally we don't understand these terms, or is it that we always overlook these terms? Gentlemen, what do we understand by the term grace? Or what do we understand by the term law? Felix.
The word law, as used in the Bible, can have different meanings based on the context. For example, it could mean the first 5 books of the Bible. That's the Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. That is the law. Because remember, when the time of Jesus, there was no New Testament writing. It was only the Old Testament. And remember when Jesus had resurrected, and then those 2 disciples from going to Emmaus, or is it from Emmaus? And as they were on the way, then Jesus joins them, and then starts explaining to them everything concerning himself from what? The Bible. And what does the Bible say? He was explaining to them from the law and the prophets. So the Old Testament is divided in that sense into the law, first 5 books, and then the others are called the prophets. Then also the law can also mean the 10 commandments and the other laws like the health laws, civil laws, the ceremonial laws, and all that. So these are given by God to govern his people, because any government, God has a government, and in any government we must have boundaries, and these boundaries are defined by laws, so that within these boundaries everyone shall live and everyone shall be happy and prosperous. But we know that because of our nature, we most of the times go astray, go contrary to what the law stipulates. For example, even in a country we have various laws. If you break one, you're supposed to pay some penalty. So God also, because of his mercy, every time we break we should be paying a penalty, but he has instituted a plan of our salvation, so that any time we go away by breaking the law or his commandments, then we can ask for forgiveness, and we are forgiven instead of paying the penalty of the law. For example, it could be death, a fine, or some other penalties, but we are forgiven. So that is what we call grace. You should have received some penalty, but God overlooks it or passes over by and says, because he has accepted that he is wrong and he has asked for mercy, then I forgive him. It is an unmerited favor to us when we have done something wrong.
Okay, so you have introduced the term favor, unmerited favor. Maybe there's something like merited favor or something of that sort. But whatever the case, now this unmerited favor, have we seen anyone receiving it? Can we say that someone like Noah maybe received unmerited favor, or he earned the favor that he was granted by God?
Okay. In Genesis chapter 6, when God is so much furious with that generation because of their sinfulness, the Bible states that he was out to destroy that generation, but Noah found favor with God. So generally grace is that, I can put it that grace is that which I deserve to get, but I don't get. But that which that which I deserve to get, I don't get. But that which I should not be getting, I get. Yeah? Like generally the entire human race was supposed to die because of sin.
Just a little bit, is it necessarily what you are supposed to get you don't get, or it has to be good? For example, if you are supposed to earn some money, then we don't give you, we favor you.
That's not favor. In this time I'm putting the perspective of grace, what grace is actually.
So grace has to be good. It's something good that you are getting, a favor, but it is benefiting to you.
I can say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, getting back to Noah, did he deserve to die also with the other generation, or he did not deserve to die?
The foregoing verses say that Noah walked righteously. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as he was walking. Yeah, it's true that within every generation, people have always worked against the laws of God, but it's true also within every time there are those people who will stand with and for God. So in this circumstance, in this instance, we're also getting one person who is Noah. That's the Bible tells us in verse 6, chapter 6. If you go down verse 6, it tells us, and Noah found favor in the eyes of God. But still the same, any man, we are prone to do sin, and we have a sin in our hearts all the time. But in one way or the other, God gave that favor unto Noah. Thus you can see the first family was saved from destruction.
So it was a favor, which means he did not deserve to live. Is that true? Well, no, did not deserve. God just did a favor. Maybe what Noah had been doing all this time in his righteousness, he did not do something that was worth him living. It was only God's favor.
Let me just stretch it back to Genesis chapter 3, where our parents have sinned. And remember, we had been told in chapter 2 that the day that you eat of this tree, of the knowledge of good and evil, then in that day thou shalt surely die, in verse 17. And we know that in chapter 3 now, the devil comes in the form of a snake, the form of a serpent, and then makes man to fall in sin. So immediately man should have been done away with at that very moment. But we see God instead instituting a plan to bring him back, to reconcile him, to bring him back to the place where he was before he sinned. So that is already showing grace, that he should have died at that moment. So grace is you could say it is a broad operational word. It is a plan indeed. It's not just an act, it is a plan. So that in this plan, God is desiring to bring us back to that relationship that we had with him in Eden before we sin. So in this grace now, as a broad operational word, it has acts of grace now, you could say so, where God sees that man has sinned. He doesn't have the same strength he had before he sinned. So he has to do what? To accept that he is weak. I'll give him the strength to be just, to do what the law requires, to do what I require. That's why you find in Genesis chapter 6 where now you find in chapter 6 verse 8 where Noah finds grace. Is juxtaposed with the rest. The rest are just given to the wickedness. But in verse 8 we see that Noah finds grace in the eyes of the Lord. Why? Because Noah held on to that grace, that chance, and says, I'll do my best to work as God wants me to do. I'll hold on to this grace so that I can do what God wills me to do. So he says that Noah was a just man and perfect in his generation. So this is why, as God looks at the whole world and sees people are just doing their own wickedness, everyone is given to his own evil, but he sees someone here who is trying, who is different, who his desire in his heart is to please his God and to be separate from the world.
Okay, so the favor is given to someone, then you have to try. It's in fact the favor that is searching for us, so we have to try and turn towards the favor so that it actually works upon us. Now let me lead us to Jesus Christ's time. During Christ's time, we understand that there were very many different sets of laws that were governing the people in that time. We can see there was that Roman law, there were rabbinic laws that had been given, the Mosaic ceremonial laws as well. We understand that there was the moral law that was taking place in that time, civic laws. Now, is it okay to pick any specific one? For example, then, moral law and call it the law, or when the New Testament writers are actually writing about the law, what law are they specifically talking about? Is it a different set, or is it the whole combination of all those laws? Did Christ, when they're talking about the law, in reference to the law, are they talking about all of them, or are they specific about a certain type of law, maybe, so that we understand when one person writes about the law, what is he implying really? Is it a general term, or is it a specific term?
Okay, maybe my take on that is when Jesus was dying on the cross, he said that it is done. And actually that phrase has always brought controversy over and over again. People talking about they take some laws from the moral laws, and that we get in the Decalogue and say, oh, Jesus said it is done. There's no need for us to hold on to this law. It doesn't make sense anymore because Jesus said it is done. But still the very same Jesus in Matthew 5:19. I think we just go there and get what Jesus is saying very, very fast. Matthew 5:18. 18 is say, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one title shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Now, I can pick from whatever it is we're talking about. You know, there are those other laws that we mentioned. And these other laws, in fact, they were putting people like in a bondage. They had the ceremonial law, the rabbinic laws, and the Roman laws. Yeah? You realize whenever people were trying to adhere to them, they were kind of in bondage rather than for them to be given freedom. So the law that is there, and that is the foundation, the fundamental of God's government, that's the moral laws, the 10 Commandments. And as we know very well, we see the sanctuary on earth. That was the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah?